There are nights when you feel like the whole world is conspiring against you. Nights when silence is filled with voices accusing you, shadows stalking you, fears paralyzing you. This is one of those nights. And Psalm 59 was written precisely for moments like this. Stay with me by this fire, because what we are about to discover here could change the way you face your battles. Tonight, we will dive into one of the most visceral psalms David wrote, a psalm born in the midst of real danger, when King Saul sent soldiers to surround David's house to kill him at dawn. Imagine that scene, the darkness of the night, the sound of footsteps around your house, whispers in the shadows, knowing that when the sun rises, they will come for you. Yet, what is extraordinary about this psalm is not the fear you might expect, but the radical confidence that emerges from the threat. David did not write a lament of despair. He wrote a battle song. He wrote a declaration of faith so bold that it crosses the centuries and reaches this very moment. To you, to this night by the fire. Let me read to you the words David wrote that dark night, surrounded by enemies. Listen carefully, because you may recognize your own story in his. Deliver me from my enemies, O God. Protect me from those who rise against me. Deliver me from evildoers, and save me from those who seek my blood. There is something deeply human in these words. David does not pretend to be strong. He does not pretend to be in control. He begins with a desperate plea, acknowledging that there are forces beyond him, people seeking his destruction. And that is the first lesson this psalm teaches us by the fire tonight. True strength begins with brutal honesty. How many times do we try to appear as if everything is under control, when inside we are falling apart? How many times do we smile while feeling like we are drowning? How many times do we say we are fine, when the truth is we are surrounded, besieged, under attack? David shows us a different path. The courage to name the danger, the freedom to cry out for help. There is power in acknowledging you cannot do it alone. There is strength in admitting your vulnerability to God. Because when you stop pretending to be invincible, that is when true divine protection can manifest. Look at how they lie in wait for my life. Cruel men conspire against me, without my having sinned or done wrong, Lord. I have done nothing wrong, yet they rush to attack me. Here, David touches something that resonates deeply in the human experience: injustice. Being attacked when you do not deserve it. Suffering consequences for faults you did not commit. Perhaps that is exactly what brought you here tonight. The confusion of being pursued, despite doing right. The pain of betrayal when you were loyal. The bitterness of seeing a conspiracy form against you for no apparent reason. David insists on his innocence, not with arrogance, but with the bewilderment of one facing inexplicable hostility. And this is crucial for understanding this psalm. There is not always a logical reason for the attacks we face. Sometimes evil is simply evil. Sometimes darkness attacks light, precisely because it is light. If you have been trying to understand why you are attacked, why you are criticized, why they seek your downfall when you have done nothing to deserve it, this psalm tells you something liberating. It is not always your fault. It is not always because you should have done something differently. Sometimes you're simply on the right path, and that makes those on the wrong path uncomfortable. Rise up and come to my help. Look at my condition. You, Lord, Almighty God, God of Israel, awaken and punish all the nations. Show no mercy to those vile traitors. Notice the change in David's tone. He moves from plea to cry, from asking for protection to demanding justice, from defending himself to asking God to act offensively against his enemies. And here we find something uncomfortable, but real. David is not being politically correct. He's not being diplomatic. He's being brutally honest with God about how he feels. This teaches us something vital about prayer. God does not need you to edit your emotions. He does not require a polished version of your pain. He does not expect you to censor your anger or desire for justice. You can come to Him with the rawness of your darkest feelings, with the rage boiling in your chest, with the desire to see those who hurt you fall. Because when you bring those feelings into the light of His presence, when you name them before Him, instead of letting them fester in the darkness of your heart, something powerful happens. He can transform them. He can channel them. He can turn your thirst for revenge into a desire for justice, your anger into energy for change, your pain into compassion for others who suffer. They return at night, howling like dogs, prowling through the city. They wander, seeking food, and growl, if not satisfied. David compares his enemies to wild dogs, roaming in the darkness. It is not a fancy image, but it is visceral, real, terrifying. You may have heard a pack of wild dogs at night. That sound that raises the hairs on your skin, makes you bolt your doors, reminds you that real dangers lurk in the dark. Your enemies prowl too. Maybe not literally around your house, but around your reputation, your opportunities, your peace of mind. Rumors circulate like hungry dogs searching for a bite. Lies spread like packs hunting prey. Conspiracies growl in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. But here comes the extraordinary twist of the psalm. Watch what David does next. But I will sing of your power. In the morning, I will praise your love, for you are my strength, my refuge, in times of distress. Read that again, slowly. While the dogs howl outside, David sings, inside. While his enemies prowl in the darkness, he plans his morning praise. While the threat is real and present, he declares that God is his strength. This is not denial. This is not ignoring danger. This is something much deeper and more powerful. This is the radical decision not to let circumstances dictate your spiritual posture. This is the revolutionary choice to praise in the midst of battle, to sing while surrounded by enemies, to declare victory while still in the middle of the war. And here is the secret David discovered that dark night, the secret that has sustained millions through the centuries. Praise is not the response to victory. Praise is the path to victory. You do not sing because you have won. You sing to win. You do not praise because you are safe. You praise to find safety. When David says, "In the morning, I will praise your love," he is not saying he will wait until dawn to see if he survives, and then praise. He's declaring, in the darkest night, that when morning comes, he will be there to praise. It is prophecy. It is faith. It is certainty that he will see a new day. To you, my strength, I will sing. For you, O God, are my refuge. You are the God who loves me. These are the psalm's final words, and they are perfect. David ends where every true prayer should end, not on his enemies, not on his fear, not on his situation. He ends on God, on who God is, on what God represents for him: strength, refuge, love. 3 words containing everything a human heart needs amid the storm: the strength to endure, the refuge to rest, the love to heal. Now let me take you deeper into this psalm, because there are layers of meaning that only reveal themselves when we contemplate it slowly, as we are doing here by the fire. The historical context of this psalm is crucial for full understanding. David was not being paranoid. He was not exaggerating. There were real soldiers, with real weapons, surrounding his real house, with real orders to kill him. His wife Michal, the daughter of the very king who wanted him dead, helped him escape through a window. She lowered David down the wall, while the soldiers guarded the entrance. It is a scene worthy of an action movie, except it was David's real life. And in the midst of that desperate situation, David did not just run. He stopped to write, to pray, to process what he was experiencing in the presence of God. That tells us something profound about spiritual priorities. Even in emergencies, even in imminent danger, there is value in stopping to connect with God before acting. How often do we act out of panic instead of divine guidance? How often do we rush in any direction just to be moving, without stopping to ask where we should go? David shows us that even when time is pressing, there is always time to seek God. But there is something else in this psalm that is easy to overlook. David does not only ask for personal protection, he broadens his perspective and speaks of nations, of justice on a cosmic scale, of the moral order of the universe. Even in his personal crisis, he keeps sight of the bigger picture. His personal battle is part of a larger war between good and evil, between justice and injustice, between light and darkness. This teaches us something vital. Your personal battles matter in the grand cosmic scheme. They are not insignificant. They are not irrelevant. When you stand firm in faith amid personal attack, you are participating in something much bigger than yourself. You are bearing witness that it is possible to trust God even when everything seems to be falling apart. You are demonstrating that faith is real, that it works, that it sustains. There are people watching your life right now, even if you do not know it. There are eyes observing how you handle this pressure. There are hearts wondering if faith really works in the real world, with real problems, with real enemies. The way you walk through this dark night could be the light someone else needs to find their own way. If you find strength in what we are discovering together tonight, consider sharing this moment with someone you know who is also going through their own dark night. Sometimes, the most valuable company we can offer is simply saying, "You are not alone in this," and sharing the words that have given us strength. Let us return to the psalm and explore an aspect that is fundamental, but often misunderstood. David speaks of his enemies with a bluntness that makes many modern readers uncomfortable. He speaks of dogs, of violence, of punishment. And it is easy to judge these words as unchristian, unloving, vengeful. But here is the crucial understanding. David is not being vindictive. He is being honest. There is a huge difference between wishing harm on someone for sadistic pleasure and crying out for justice when you have been genuinely wronged. David does not invent enemies. He does not exaggerate threats. There are people who literally want to kill him, and he has every right to ask God to intervene. This psalm gives us permission to be honest with God about the real harm that real people have caused us. You do not have to spiritualize your pain. You do not have to pretend it does not hurt when you are betrayed. You do not have to smile and say everything is fine when someone is actively working to destroy you. Bring that pain to God. Name it. Describe it. Be specific about who hurt you and how. God can handle it. In fact, He prefers your raw honesty over your pious pretense, because only when you bring the full truth of your experience into His presence can He fully heal your heart. And here is the beautiful paradox. When you give your desire for revenge to God, when you cry out for justice before Him, instead of taking matters into your own hands, something transforms within you. Bitterness begins to release. The poison of resentment begins to drain. Your heart begins to heal, not because the harm was not real, but because you placed it in the right hands. Now, let us observe something fascinating in the structure of the psalm. David alternates between plea and trust, between crying out and praise, between fear and faith. It is not a linear progression from doubt to certainty. It is more like a dance, a back and forth movement between the reality of the threat and the reality of God. And that is exactly how real faith works in the real world. It is not a constant state of unshakable confidence. It is a process, a journey, an ongoing conversation between what your eyes see and what your spirit knows. One moment you are crying out for help. The next you are declaring that God is your strength. One moment you are describing your enemies. The next you are praising your protector. This frees us from the pressure to maintain a perfect facade of faith. Your faith can falter and still be real. You can doubt and still believe. You can be afraid and still trust. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is the decision to move forward despite fear, to keep trusting despite doubt, to keep praising despite circumstances. David shows us that honesty is more valuable than perfection. God prefers your imperfect truth over your perfect performance. You can come to Him exactly as you are, with all your contradictions, with all your fears, with all your doubts, and He will receive you. There is a specific moment in the psalm I want us to consider more deeply. When David says, his enemies roam in search of food and growl. If they are not satisfied, it is an image of insatiability. David's enemies, like wild dogs, are never satisfied. They always want more. They always seek more victims, more harm, more destruction. And this is true of evil in general. It is never satisfied. The person who betrayed you once will betray again. The tongue that spread a rumor about you will spread more. The heart that harbored envy against you will continue to envy. Because the problem is not you. The problem is the insatiable nature of darkness. This is liberating when you understand it. Stop looking for what you did wrong to provoke the attack. Stop trying to be good enough so that they will leave you alone. Stop modifying your behavior in hopes of appeasing those who attack you. It will not work, because the problem is not your behavior. The problem is the insatiable nature of evil. Your task is not to satisfy your enemies. Your task is to remain faithful to your calling, faithful to your character, faithful to God, and trust that He will take care of the rest. I will sing of your power in the morning. I will sing of your love. This line deserves its own contemplation. David is in the darkest night of his life. Up to that point, he is surrounded. He is in danger. He is fleeing. And yet he speaks of the morning with certainty. He does not say if the morning comes. He says, when the morning comes. This is prophetic faith. This is the ability to see beyond the present crisis toward the future God has promised. This is the skill of declaring the dawn while still in the deepest midnight darkness. And here is the truth David had learned, probably through many previous dark nights. The night always ends. Always. No matter how long, how dark, how terrifying the night, morning always comes. It is a physical law, but also a spiritual law. Darkness cannot permanently contain the light. Dawn is inevitable. Your night will also end. This crisis that seems endless will end. This attack that seems relentless will cease. This pain that seems permanent will pass. It may not be tomorrow, literally. It may take weeks, months, even years. But the morning will come. And when it does, you will be there to praise. Now I want to speak to you about something practical, something you can do tonight, inspired by David's example. When David says he will sing of God's strength in the morning, he is not simply having positive thoughts. He is making an intentional declaration, establishing a practice, creating a ritual of faith. You can do the same. Before this night ends, before you put out the fire and go to rest, declare aloud what you will do tomorrow when you wake. No matter how you feel, no matter what news you receive, no matter what attacks come, decide now that your first act will be to recognize God as your strength. It can be as simple as saying aloud when you open your eyes, God is my strength today. Or you can take 5 minutes to write a list of ways God has been faithful in the past. Or you can literally sing a song of praise, even if your voice trembles. even if tears flow, even if everything in you wants to do anything else. Because here is the secret David discovered. Morning praise is not the result of a peaceful night. Morning praise is the weapon that guarantees you will survive the difficult night. You do not praise because you slept well. You praise in order to rise after having slept none. This is not psychological manipulation. This is not magical thinking. This is aligning yourself with a spiritual reality deeper than your circumstances. When you praise, you are not ignoring your problems. You are acknowledging that there is a God greater than your problems. When you sing, you are not denying the danger. You are declaring that there is a protection stronger than the danger. When you declare that God is your strength, you are not pretending you are not weak. You are acknowledging that your weakness can connect to His strength. And something mystical yet real happens in that moment of connection. Something that transcends logic, but is completely verifiable in experience. You feel a change, a peace you cannot explain, a strength that is not yours, a courage that does not come from your own nature. It is the tangible presence of a God who responds when you call on Him in the midst of your crisis. If you are finding peace in these words tonight, if something in your spirit resonates with this ancient truth, I invite you to subscribe to Psalms with David. Not because I need numbers, but because you might need these reminders. Nights like this will come again. New crises will arise. And having a place to return to remember these truths, to reconnect with this faith, could be exactly what you need when the next storm arrives. There is another dimension of Psalm 59 I want to explore with you. It is the tension between action and waiting, between movement and stillness. David is fleeing physically. He must act. He must move. He must escape. But he is also waiting spiritually. He is waiting for God to act. He is waiting for divine justice. He is waiting for vindication. This tension is something we all face. When should we act? And when should we wait? When should we defend ourselves? And when should we trust God to defend us? When should we take the window Michal opens for us? And when should we stand and face Saul directly? There is no simple answer. There is no formula that works in every situation. But there is a principle that guides the decision. Act according to God's direction, not according to fear. Move when He moves you, not when panic pushes you. Flee when He tells you to flee, not simply because you are afraid. Stand when He tells you to stand, not simply because you have something to prove. The difference between action guided by God and action guided by fear is subtle, but crucial. One flows from peace, even if that peace coexists with urgency. The other flows from panic, and always leads to decisions you will later regret. One takes you to a safe place. The other simply moves you in circles. David acted, yes. He fled through the window. He escaped the soldiers. But before acting, he prayed. Before moving, he connected with God. Before making decisions, he established his spiritual foundation. And that sequence matters immensely. When you face your crisis, when the dogs howl at your door, when you feel you must do something now, stop first. Even for a moment. Even while going down the stairs. Even while opening the window. Connect with God first. Establish your spiritual center first. Remember who your strength is first. And then act from that place of connection, rather than from a place of panic. Decisions made from connection with God are always better than decisions made from disconnected panic. Always, without exception. There is an aspect of the psalm that may seem troubling to some. David asks God not to destroy his enemies completely right away, so that the people do not forget God's power. In other words, he requests that judgment be visible, public, prolonged, so that it serves as a lesson. This may sound vengeful or even cruel, But there is deep wisdom here, related to testimony and memory. David understands that instant victories are quickly forgotten. Deliverances that happen in secret do not build the faith of the community. Miracles that no one sees do not inspire the next generation. He wants the way God defends him to be so visible, so undeniable, so clearly supernatural, that no one can attribute it to coincidence or human ability. He wants that when God acts, everyone knows it was God who acted. There is something to learn here about how we face our own battles. When God defends you, when He vindicates you, when He brings justice on your behalf, do not minimize what He has done. Do not downplay it. Do not act as if you achieved it alone, or were simply lucky. Testify. Tell the story. Share how God intervened. Not for boasting, but so that others who are in their own dark nights know that there is a God who sees, who hears, who acts. Your testimony could be exactly what someone else needs to hear, to hold on to their faith, to keep believing, to not give up. Your victories are not only yours, they are also meant to build others. Your deliverance is not only your deliverance, it is also a message of hope for those still under siege. Your testimony is not only your story, it is also a chapter in the larger story of God's faithfulness across generations. Now let me take you deeper into contemplation. Beyond the specific words of the psalm, there is a pattern, an emotional and spiritual structure that repeats throughout Scripture and through every human experience of crisis and faith. It begins with the recognition of danger, brutal honesty about the threat, no denial, no minimization. This is real. This is terrifying. This could destroy me. Next comes the desperate cry for help, the unadorned plea, the raw request. Help me. Save me. I cannot do this alone. Then comes the exposure of the enemy, the description of evil, the specific naming of who or what is causing harm. These are my enemies. This is what they are doing. This is how they are hurting me. Then comes the appeal to God's justice, the reminder that God is just, and that justice demands a response. I have done nothing to deserve this. Injustice calls for correction. Your character demands that you intervene. Finally comes the declaration of trust. Despite everything, despite the ongoing danger, despite the fact that the situation has not yet changed, the decision to trust, the choice to praise, the determination to believe. This pattern is not unique to Psalm 59. We see it throughout the Psalms. We see it in the prayers of the prophets. We see it in the experiences of the saints throughout history. And we see it because it reflects something deeply true about how we process trauma and find faith in the midst of crisis. You cannot skip directly to trust without passing through honesty. You cannot praise authentically without first having cried out genuinely. You cannot declare victory without first naming the enemy. Each step is necessary. Each stage is important. Each part of the process has its purpose. So wherever you are on this journey tonight, it is okay. If you are in the recognition of danger, name it. If you are in the desperate cry, cry out. If you are exposing the enemy, expose. If you are appealing to justice, appeal. If you are declaring trust, declare. There is no wrong place to be in this process. There is a way through, but no wrong place to start. Wherever you are, God can meet you there. Wherever you are, God can work with you from there. Wherever you are, the journey toward faith begins from that exact point. The fire burning beside us tonight is a beautiful reminder. Fire transforms, fire purifies, fire illuminates. And this dark night you are passing through is like going through fire. It hurts, it burns, it consumes. But what emerges on the other side is purer, stronger, more refined. David entered that night as a young musician who had enjoyed success in the king's court. He emerged as a warrior who knew both mortal danger and divine protection. The night transformed him. The danger refined him. The crisis forged him into the man he needed to be to fulfill his destiny. Your night is transforming you as well. It is refining you. It is forging you. You may not feel it now. You may only feel the pain, the heat, the burning. But something is happening in you that can only happen in the fire. A strength that is only forged in adversity. A faith that is only tested in crisis. A knowledge of God that is only gained when you desperately need Him. The patriarchs and prophets we most love, who inspire us, whom we quote most often, were all forged in the fire. Abraham in uncertainty, Joseph in betrayal and prison, Moses in the wilderness, David in persecution, Job in loss, Jeremiah in rejection, Paul in suffering. None of them became who they were in times of comfort. All were forged in the fire, and you are being forged tonight as well. The David who wrote the deepest psalms, who reigned with wisdom, who was called a man after God's own heart. That David was born in nights, like the one we are contemplating, in moments when he had to choose between panic and faith, in instances when he had to decide whether to curse the darkness or ignite a light of praise. Let me share something more about the morning praise that David promises. There is a special power in early morning praise, not just because it is a good habit or an admirable spiritual discipline. Something deeper is happening. The morning represents new beginnings. It represents that you survived the night. It represents that God's promises are faithful at every dawn. When you praise in the morning, you are declaring that despite everything the night brought, despite all the fears that tormented you, despite all the threats you faced, you are still here, and God is still faithful. Morning praise is an act of defiance against darkness. It is telling all the forces that conspired against you during the night that they did not win. It is declaring that your faith not only survived the night, but emerged stronger. It is announcing that a new day brings new mercies and new reasons to trust. But there is something even more powerful in morning praise. It sets the tone for the entire coming day. When you start your day, recognizing that God is your strength, when your first words are of gratitude and trust, you are programming your spirit to respond to the day from a place of faith rather than fear. The thoughts you fill your mind with in the first hours of the day have disproportionate power over how you experience the rest of the day. If you start by reviewing all the threats, rehearsing all the negative scenarios, anticipating every possible attack, you set your day up for constant anxiety. But if you start by declaring who God is to you, remembering His acts of faithfulness in the past, trusting His promises for the future, you set your day up to be an experience of peace in the midst of any storm that may come. David understood this intuitively. That is why, even in the midst of the sharpest night crisis, he is already planning his morning praise. He is already setting his intention for when the sun rises. He is already deciding how he will begin the new day. You can do the same tonight. Before you finish listening to this, before you rise from beside the fire, decide now how you will start tomorrow. Do not let it be an improvised decision made when the alarm goes off and you are half asleep. Decide now, with mental clarity and spiritual determination, that the first thing you will do tomorrow is recognize God as your strength. Write it down if necessary. Place a note by your bed. Set a reminder on your phone. Do whatever it takes to make sure you do not forget in the confusion of the morning the decision you are making now, in the clarity of this moment beside the fire. Because here is the truth. Tomorrow will be difficult. The dogs will keep howling. The enemies will keep prowling. The problems will not disappear magically just because the sun rises. But you will be different. You will have made a decision. You will have established a stance. You will have chosen faith over fear from the very first moment of the day. And that choice will change everything. Now I want to talk to you about something that David does not explicitly say in this psalm, but is implied in every line: the concept of refuge. David calls God his refuge. But what does it really mean to take refuge in God? A refuge is not a place where storms do not exist. It is a place where you are protected while the storm rages outside. A refuge does not remove the danger from the world. It protects you from danger while you remain in it. A refuge does not mean there are no threats. It means there is a safe place amid the threats. This is crucial to understand because many misunderstand what it means to trust God as a refuge. They think it means God will eliminate all problems, make all enemies disappear, create a life without difficulties. And when that does not happen, when problems persist, when enemies remain, when hardships continue, they conclude that God is not really a refuge, or that they are not worthy of His protection. But that is not what Scripture promises. David wrote this psalm while soldiers still surrounded his house. God was his refuge that night, not because He made the soldiers disappear, but because He gave him peace amid danger, wisdom to know what to do, strength to act when necessary, and the certainty that He would see the sunrise. God is your refuge tonight, not necessarily because He will make all your problems disappear, but because He will give you what you need to get through them. Peace that makes no logical sense given your situation, wisdom to make the right decisions, strength to do what you must do, certainty that this is not the end of your story. God's refuge is not escapism. It is empowerment. It is not evasion. It is equipping. It is not denial of reality. It is a deeper reality that sustains and transforms the reality you see with your eyes. When you take refuge in God, you are not running from your problems. You are positioning yourself in the one place from which you can face them effectively. You are connecting with the only source of power that can truly change your situation. You are aligning yourself with the one truth that is stronger than all the lies that have been told about you. Think of David in his house that night. Physically, he was trapped. Soldiers outside. Orders to kill him. Apparently, no way out. But spiritually, he was in the safest refuge in the universe. He was connected to God, and that connection gave him what he needed to survive physically as well. Michal came with the window plan. The timing was perfect. The soldiers were distracted at the exact moment. David had the physical agility to lower himself down the wall. All of this might have seemed like coincidence, luck, or simply a good escape plan. But David knew it was God's hand protecting him because he had first sought refuge in God's presence. The same is available to you. When you take refuge in God, when you connect with Him in the midst of your crisis, when you seek His presence before seeking solutions, something mystical happens. Doors open, ideas come, people appear, moments align, forces shift. Those without spiritual eyes will call it coincidence. You will know it is the hand of God responding to your faith, working in your favor, opening paths where there were none. Psalm 59 does not end with a description of the deliverance achieved. It ends with the promise of future praise and the declaration of present trust. In other words, when David finishes writing, the soldiers are still outside. The danger is still real. The threat has not ended. And yet, the psalm ends in victory. How is this possible? How can he declare victory while still in danger? Because David understood something profound. True victory is not the absence of opposition. True victory is the presence of God in the midst of opposition. You can be victorious and still have enemies. You can be more than a conqueror and still be in battle. You can walk in triumph and still face resistance. Because victory is not measured by the absence of problems, but by the presence of peace amid the problems. This completely redefines how we understand spiritual success. It is not reaching a point where there are no difficulties. It is reaching a point where difficulties do not define your experience. It is not eliminating all enemies. It is reaching a place where the enemies cannot touch your peace. It is not living without attacks. It is living without being defeated by the attacks. David was victorious that night, not because the soldiers left. He was victorious because his spirit remained firm, his faith remained strong, his connection with God remained intact. That is the victory that truly matters. That is the victory no one can take from you. You can have that same victory tonight. Do not wait for all your problems to be resolved to declare yourself victorious. Do not wait for all your enemies to surrender to consider yourself a conqueror. Declare your victory now, in the midst of chaos, because you already have what truly matters: God as your strength. There is power in declaring victory before you see the victory manifested. There is faith in singing the song of triumph while still in battle. There is spiritual wisdom in praising for what God will do before He does it. This is not arrogance. This is confidence in God's character. This is not presumption. This is certainty based on His proven faithfulness. This is not magical thinking. This is biblical faith in action. When you declare victory in the midst of battle, something happens in the spiritual realm. You demonstrate that your trust is in God and not in circumstances. You proclaim that your security is in His character and not in your situation. You announce that your peace comes from Him and not from the absence of problems. And God honors that faith. He responds to that trust. He moves in response to that declaration. Let me now take you to the final image of the psalm. The dogs are howling, prowling, searching for food. It is a disturbing image, designed to be so. But there is more in this image that I want you to see. The dogs prowl, but they cannot enter. They search, but they do not find. They howl, but they cannot touch. There is an invisible but real barrier between them and David. There is a protection they cannot penetrate. There is a boundary they cannot cross. That boundary is the presence of God. That barrier is His protection. That invisible wall is His favor over your life. Your enemies may circle. They may make noise. They may seem threatening. But there is a limit to what they can do. There is a line they cannot cross. There is a point beyond which they have no access. This is a truth you need to hold tightly. The enemy has limits. Their attacks have borders. Their power has restrictions. They cannot do everything they want. They cannot go as far as they want. They cannot harm you as much as they would like, because there is a greater God who rules over all. There is a protector, stronger than any attacker. There is a defender who sets boundaries that no enemy can cross without his permission. This does not mean you will not face difficulties. It does not mean there will be no attacks. It does not mean there will be no pain. But it does mean there is a divine limit to how much and how far. It means that even in the fiercest attack, you are under divine protection. It means you will never face more than God knows you can endure with His help. The dogs may howl all night. They may prowl until dawn. They may search tirelessly, but they cannot enter where you are sheltered in God. They cannot reach what He has placed under His protection. They cannot destroy what He has decided to preserve. This is your reality tonight. Yes, there are threats. Yes, there are dangers. Yes, there are enemies. But there are limits to what they can do. And most importantly, there is a limitless God who is protecting you. Now I want us to do something together. I want you to take everything we have contemplated tonight and turn it into your own personal declaration. Do not just listen to my words. Make them yours. Do not just receive passively. Participate actively. You can say it out loud if you are alone, or in your heart if there are others nearby. But declare it. Make it personal. Make it yours. God is my strength, not a strength, not simply one option among many. My strength, the only one I truly trust, the only one that has never fallen, the only one that can never be conquered. God is my refuge. When storms roar, I run to Him. When dangers lurk, I hide in Him. When enemies surround me, I take shelter in Him. I have no other safe place. I need no other safe place. He is enough. God is my defender. I do not have to fight every battle alone. I do not have to protect myself with my own strength. I do not have to defend myself with my own words. He fights for me. He protects me. He defends me. I will sing of His strength in the morning, no matter how I feel, no matter what news comes, no matter what attacks come. I have decided now, tonight, that when morning comes, my first act will be praise. I will praise His unfailing love, because He has loved me when I was unworthy. He has pursued me when I fled. He has sustained me when I fell. He has forgiven me when I failed. His love has never failed. His love will never fail. He is my God in whom I trust, not in my own plans, not in my own wisdom, not in my own strength. In Him, only in Him, completely in Him. Can you feel the power of these words when you make them yours? Can you feel something settling in your spirit as you declare them personally? This is not magic. This is faith. Faith expressed. Faith declared. Faith put into action through your words. There is a deep spiritual principle here. What you confess with your mouth eventually becomes your experience. Not because the words have magical power, but because the words reveal and shape the posture of your heart. And the posture of your heart determines how you experience your life. If you spend your day confessing your fear, your weakness, your vulnerability, that is what you will experience. Not because God is not there, but because your heart is tuned to fear instead of faith. But if you spend your day confessing His strength, His protection, His faithfulness, that is what you will experience, even amid difficult circumstances. Your words matter. Your declarations carry weight. Your confession has power, not to control God or manipulate reality, but to align your heart with the deeper reality of who God is and who you are in relation to Him. So be intentional with your words tomorrow. Be deliberate with what you declare. Be mindful of what you confess, because you are shaping your experience with every word you speak. Amen.